This election is really heating up. Former President Trump on Thursday took swipes at a slew of possible 2024 GOP rivals, calling his former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley overly ambitious and accusing Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin of being ungrateful. Trump spoke for a half hour with conservative radio host Hugh Hewitt, addressing some of his potential challengers for the Republican presidential nomination and refusing to commit to endorsing the party's eventual nominee. The former president told Hewitt he believes Haley, DeSantis, Youngkin, and former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo should not run against him because of Trump's previous relationships with them, though Trump acknowledged that would probably not stop them. Yeah, I would say that, but I know how life works, and I know how politics works, Trump said, and politics is a microcosm, but even more vicious, of life. So, I've helped all those people. I took Mike out of nothing. I believe he always said he'd never run against the president, Trump added. And time goes by and then they want to run because they're ambitious people, but they're polling very poorly. Pompeo has not said whether he is running for president in 2024, though he recently released a memoir and has been visiting early primary states like Iowa and New Hampshire. Trump was similarly critical of Haley, who is expected to announce on February 15th that she is running for president. Trump said he spoke on the phone recently with Haley about her plans. She said, "I'll never run against my president. He's a great president. He's been our greatest president. I'll never run. I'll never run," Trump told Hewitt. But Nikki suffers from something that a very tough thing to suffer from. She's overly ambitious. Trump classified Youngkin, the Virginia governor, for not chastised Youngkin, the Virginia governor, for not publicly giving him more credit for helping him get elected in 2021. Trump said Youngkin reached out to Trump privately to offer his appreciation after Trump did a tele rally in the closing days of the campaign, but the former president bemoaned that Youngkin was not appreciative, though, enough in public. Trump was similarly critical of DeSantis, the Florida governor, who sees the former president's chief rival in a possible 2024 matchup. Ron DeSantis got elected because of me. You remember he had nothing. He was dead. He was leaving the race. He came over and he begged me for an endorsement, Trump said, even claiming that DeSantis was crying at the time. The former president had in recent days ramped up his attacks on DeSantis, accusing the governor of rewriting history over how he responded to the COVID pandemic and calling him a rhino globalist. Most polls have shown Trump and DeSantis comfortably ahead of the rest of the field in the hypothetical GOP primary. DeSantis has pulled ahead of Trump in some recent polls, including one released last week, polling GOP primary voters in New Hampshire. But Trump is currently the only declared candidate in the field, and his dedicated base of voters gives him a steady floor of support in the primary, particularly if several candidates splinter the rest of the electorate. Trump has held a few events since announcing his candidacy in November, appearing last week in New Hampshire and South Carolina for his first campaign speeches outside of Florida. The former president told Hewitt that his children would not be part of his campaign this time around after his son-in-law Jared Kushner played a key role in 2016-2020. So the answer is Jared won't be involved, and I don't want them, Trump said. I want them to go out and have a nice life. The real reason they're not involved is they don't think he can win this time. But anyways, so I decided I try to not cover two stories about this election back to back, but I thought both of these articles were interesting because the other one's more so focused on DeSantis, and this one's kind of just everybody. Now, when Trump says, "I've helped all those people, I took Mike out of nothing," I believe he always said he'd never run against the president. It's important to remember that Pence was the governor of Indiana, a relatively well established person in politics because he was also a congressman before that, who I think probably would have run for president if he were never picked as Trump's running mate in 2016, or if, let's say, they lost to Clinton and Kane. He probably still would have run for president at some point. Like, you don't run for representative or then governor or senator and you're not trying to become president. That's when people are ambitious. And they're in politics. There's generally a ladder they go up, and that's something that he was playing through. He just probably didn't expect to be VP, and then when he was VP, most certainly didn't expect for Trump to go along with, election denials and the January 6th incident. Where he says they're ambitious people, but they're polling very poorly. I've said before, polls this far out So over a year before actual voting takes place mean almost nothing. You have polls from, for example, February of 2015. This is for the 2016 Republican primary that have Jeb Bush and what's the name of that hot dog vendor? Walker from Wisconsin. You know, in the lead, the top candidates. So the idea that basically, as much as I don't like any of these candidates, the any of the ones that get mentioned here, I'm not going to tell them, oh, well, you're not polling very well 12 months before an election is supposed to take place that you haven't even entered in yet. It's like, yeah, that's the point of them entering. They announce they're running, they go around campaigning, and then more people become familiar with them and they have higher chances of winning. Now, I said before, most of these people have no chance. Haley is going to apparently get in on the 15th. I don't think she has a chance, but I'm not going to say because she's polling low now that that's a guaranteed thing that's going to stay. Like, she could end up being the number 2, 3, 4 person during this race. We don't know because she hasn't entered, and we're a year away from voting actually occurring. And I really do doubt that she said he's been our greatest president. I'll look that up. I don't think she was that glowing in her praise of him. I think that's him trying to, embellish. But the DeSantis comments were the funniest. You remember he had nothing, he was dead. DeSantis was someone who was a congressman for years, who wanted to run for senator but dropped out of the race because Rubio decided to get back in the race after saying that if he didn't win his White House bid, he would stop being a senator. And 2 years later, ran for governor again as a well known conservative because he had just recently, been a congressman, and ended up winning. So where was he? And it's like I don't enjoy defending DeSantis or praising him but like Trump makes stuff up about this man because he's afraid of him. He was he, you remember he had nothing, he was dead. He had all of his donor buddies from when he ran for senator and congressman before that. He came over and he begged me for an endorsement. I'm just imagining DeSantis with these tears coming out his face like, Trump, please endorse me. Trump, please endorse me for governor. I'm doing my DeSantis impression. This kind of reminds me of what Trump said about Romney when Romney criticized him during the 2016 primary, which was like this unprecedented attack by a former nominee of the current frontrunner. And he was saying that Romney begged him and got on his knees and walked like the penguin. It was like, so anytime somebody he endorsed in the past now is in a position where they're like antagonistic to what his current aspirations are, like is running against him, for example, he'll say that they begged him, that they were pleading for him to come to their rescue. It's really crazy how like you like he says these people have no loyalty, but look at the way he talks about them. Overly ambitious. Every single one of these politicians that is thinking of entering this race could be argued as overly ambitious. Trump is literally attempting to do something that is damn near unheard of in modern political history, which is be a president who lost re-election and tried to run for a non-consecutive second term. That's only ever worked for one person, Grover Cleveland, and it's not been attempted by any of the former ones who had one term because generally it's accepted that your time is done. You tried, you'll be remembered for your however your one term was, but that's it for you. So you could say he's overly ambitious as well. But I mean, the idea that he would hold Pence to like not running against the president when Pence pretty reasonably did not expect to have Trump running for a third election in a row for president after losing the second time. So it's an interesting interview because it shows that every person that does something that is not what he likes has betrayed him in some way, and anyone that gets his endorsement in an election and you at some later point don't, play dear leader and follow strictly with whatever his plot was, he'll turn on you and say that you begged him and you were on your knees and you were crying and you were walking like the, because again, he's done this before. So this was an interesting interview because I'm glad we got to kind of see his specific attacks on all these different people. And like I said, I'm no fan of any of them, but if Trump says something or if they say something about him that's not true, I'm going to correct it because I was there and other people were there, and all these different, articles still exist that show what was said about them at the time. And it's easy to disprove when one of these politicians is full of crap. So I hope you enjoyed.